Hi, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Lauren.
and this is our BREXIT TED Talk. Have you ever been in a relationship or a friendship before where you feel like you always have to compromise or you feel limited by what the other person wants you to do? Well, that's how the UK feels about being in the EU. So how did this whole Brexit controversy thing start? Well, the UK joined the EU on January 1st, 1973. Being a member nation of the EU involves all the following: reduced border control between its members and free movement of EU citizens within its member nations. The EU Council is responsible for setting policies and proposing legislature. In terms of economics, the euro is the common currency, but some nations still retain their own monetary standard, such as the UK retains its pound. The EU encourages unified trade among 28 member countries and the utilization of the European Central Bank, as well as removing tariffs and trade barriers that would block other EU members from proper trade. They also must adhere to a common agricultural policy.
The Brexit movement started on Thursday, 23rd of June 2016, when a public vote was held to decide whether to leave the EU. The Leave vote won 52 to 48.
There are a couple of arguments in favor of Brexit. Immigration is the biggest reason why many people want to leave Brexit. Well, want a complete Brexit. The increased amount of refugees and free movement of EU citizens is leading to overcrowding and fewer job opportunities for the native English. Secondly, many English people feel that being a part of the EU results in a loss of their sovereignty. By leaving the EU, people feel like that sovereignty would be returned to Parliament and the British court system. Also, leaving the EU saves £8.5 billion. Instead, that Brexit dividend could be used to support domestic funding, such as the expensive but highly valued NHS of the UK.
There are also a couple of arguments against Brexit. Firstly, the EU provides more employment opportunities and higher wages in Europe. The countries that make up the Union create a single market in which they have more power to negotiate international trade deals. About 10% of the current jobs in Europe are linked to the EU. In addition, the countries who are part of the Union can share intelligence and military training. Traveling also becomes easier for the citizens of the EU. They are provided with a Schengen visa, which allows them to travel to other countries who are part of the EU without a formal passport. Lastly, the EU has mandates that protects vulnerable and minority groups.
So what is the stance of the different political parties on the whole Brexit ordeal? Well, Boris Johnson is the current Prime Minister and is one of the biggest supporters of the Brexit deal. He's part of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is primarily comprised of English, middle-upper class, and those who generally have a higher education. Members of the Conservative Party support Brexit because of how it would limit immigration. Overcrowding and decreased job opportunities for the native English are one of the major factors for why the Conservative Party tends to support Brexit. The Labour Party is mostly comprised of people in the working class, who are industrial workers and are predominantly Scots and Welsh. Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, has left the option open to have a vote of no confidence in which there would be a general election called. This would replace Boris Johnson and would also give an opportunity to further delay Brexit. The Liberal Democratic Party wants to actively prevent Brexit. Now, Liberal Democrats primarily feel that the EU citizens should have the right to live and work where they have established themselves under the EU. They feel that preventing Brexit would guarantee the rights of the EU citizens in the UK. The Scottish National Party is opposed to Brexit. In the referendum, 62% of people in Scotland voted to stay in the EU. They say that leaving the EU would wipe out thousands of jobs and significantly damage their economy.
How do the different parts of the UK feel about Brexit? First is England. Depending on their respective political party, England is fairly divided over the controversy. Next is Scotland. Scotland is opposed to Brexit. If Britain were to leave the EU, Scotland would enter an economic shock and would make over 80,000 Scots unemployed. This calls into question whether Scotland will ever earn its independence. Northern Ireland is also opposed to Brexit. Their referendum was to remain in the EU by 56 to 44. If they were to leave, then political disestabilization could happen, as well as the setup of border controls between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. For Wales, the referendum vote was 53 to 48, with the majority wanting to leave.
Boris Johnson's most recent Brexit plan involves new customs arrangements. This plan would also create a customs and regulatory border between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. Some goods that are being transported between the two would have to pay EU import tariffs. This tariff would be refunded by the UK if the goods remained in Northern Ireland. Other outcomes include delays at port, traffic bottlenecks, and a disruption of supply if Brexit were to happen. There's also temporary damage to economies, and the pound could fall, which would affect the price and availability of some foods in the UK. There are also concerns over potential shortages in medicine during this transition time.
The Brexit deal is still being negotiated. Right now it includes the rights to EU citizens in the UK, how much money the UK is to pay the EU, and a customary and regulatory border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Johnson has to ask the EU for another Brexit delay. If the EU approves the extension request, the Brexit deadline would be most likely delayed until January 31st, 2020. Most recently, Boris Johnson offered a deal to give members of Parliament more time to scrutinize the Brexit deal if they back his December 12th poll for an early election as well.
We think the UK should leave the EU. This is because it would allow them to take control of their own sovereignty. The EU rules are too limiting to the UK. While in the EU, the UK loses control of their borders and have to adhere to environmental and labor laws. We feel that the UK is powerful enough to make it on their own, and they have such a strong economy, they would be fine if they separated from the EU. Thank you so much.
You.